Space. It's vast, confusing, and full of complex menus. Hello there. Have you ever wanted to venture into the stars, explore all the universe has to offer, and then abduct every species you find so you can bring them home and eat them in order to feed your ever-growing biomass? I know I have, but it's a big galaxy out there, and it's hard to know where to start. So sit back, relax, and let me guide you through the absolute basics in order to start playing Stellaris. At its core, Stellaris is a 4X strategy game. Explore, expand, exploit, exterminate. The main gameplay loop revolves around this concept as you find new systems, grow your borders, harvest their resources, and potentially go to war with your neighbors once you've run out of space. But what sets Stellaris apart is an infusion of role-playing to the dynamic. You design your species from the ground up, from their genetic makeup and homelands to their ethics and government. The decisions you make throughout the course of the game are reflected by your species, and the harder you lean into what your people would actually do, the more you benefit and the better you play. So before we can get into the meat of the game, we need to pick who or what we play as. Starting up a new game, you will have a vast selection of different empires to choose from, but half the fun is making up your own unique species and dreaming up the horrible atrocities that they will inflict upon the galaxy. So let's start creating and get ourselves immediately overwhelmed by options. For your first few games, don't worry too much about making the right choices, because in games like Stellaris, you will lose. You'll learn something new from your loss, and you can apply that on your next run. It's part of the game's cycle, so try to remember that losing is fun. Your species traits will determine what your population is good and bad at. If you want to play as a peaceful farming people or some giga-brained nerds, this is where you start genetically modifying your pops. Ethics and civics will let you specialize your entire empire. It's where the heart of your ethical and moral quandaries lie and can affect how you respond to certain events during the game. Then your origin gives a unique starting point for your species and describes how they launched themselves into spaceflight and FTL travel. All the other options are basically fluff, but fun fluff. Pick your species type, give them funny names, design your ships, paint a flag, all important, but starting off, don't worry too heavily about them. So you spent hours creating your abominations and are finally starting the game. What do you do now? Well, every game starts with the same 4 things: a science ship, construction ship, home planet, and military fleet. You'll cycle through these 4 groups as the game goes on, so let's look at them one by one. Science ships allow you to explore the galaxy and survey new systems. Since your species has only just discovered FTL, the galaxy is still full of mysteries and secrets. Zoom all the way out from your starting system and you'll be on the galaxy map. Select any nearby star, right-click it, and begin surveying the system. Your science vessel will hyper-jump to the new system and start hopping from planet to planet, looking for valuable resources and scientific anomalies. Anomalies are mini events that your scientists can investigate and unlock additional resources, unique stories, special ships, and a whole host of other surprises, both good and bad. More complex ones can take a lot of time to complete, but generally it's always worth researching these when you have the opportunity. Once your vessel has surveyed a system, you can continue exploring elsewhere. Holding shift lets you queue up multiple orders and flight paths, and control shift will let you inject an order next into the queue. These hotkeys are super useful and will save you a lot of micromanagement in the long run. Now that you know how to explore, it's time to learn to expand with the construction ship. Zoom in on your home galaxy, grab your construction ship. There will always be an asteroid or two here that needs to be mined, so you can build your first mining stations at home and we can start talking about basic resources. First are minerals and energy. Minerals are the basic Lego block of your empire that are needed to build every non-military structure. Resource collectors in space and buildings on planet side will both use minerals, so ensuring you have some on hand is important to make sure you always grow your economy. Energy is the space money of the galaxy. It's used to pay for upkeep of literally everything you can make, and it can also be exchanged to buy goods and services. You can never have too much energy, or minerals, or honestly any of the resources. You just want as much as you can hoard. By the time you're done building your first mining platforms, your science ship should be almost finished surveying the new system. A fully surveyed system will allow for building of a starbase. Think of them as the flag you plant on a star to say, "This is mine, do not touch." Once your flag is planted, you can start building resource platforms in that new system. Survey new systems, build more starbases, devour the entire universe. Starbases are the first of our military structures. So let's talk about 2 more resources: alloys and influence. Influence is a special resource that you get a set amount of and reflects your ability to strut on the galactic stage. You can generate more influence by being scary and flexing on your rivals, and it's spent on either expanding your borders or on various diplomatic options that we'll talk about later. Alloys are like minerals, but for war. Starbases, starships, ships, and all late-game megastructures all require alloys to build, and alloys are primarily generated by refining minerals on your planets. So, let's talk about planets. Your home planet, and any other subsequent planets you colonize, allow you to exploit the resources of that land and the labor of your aliens. Compared to the science and construction ships, there is a lot of information on planet side, so we're going to cover only the need-to-know basics, and also let you know that for your first few games, you can absolutely just click this button and let the AI handle it for you. There's no judgment here, there's a lot to learn in this game, so please take it one step at a time. On the first planet tab, there are 3 main windows to pay attention to. The information window in the corner will show you an overview of important stats. Most importantly is the available housing and available jobs. You always want these numbers between 1 and 3 to ensure that everyone is working and not homeless, while also keeping upkeep at a minimal cost. The districts panel is where you build these homes and jobs. Every planet has a limited number of districts based on how big the planet is, and each type of district generates different resources for your empire. We've discussed minerals, energy, and alloys, so let's wrap up the other 2, food and consumer goods. Food is, well, pretty self-explanatory. If you don't understand the concept of food, I'm really not sure how you've survived this long. Pops need food to grow. If you don't have food, you won't grow more pops, and pops are everything. Consumer goods are the peaceful version of alloys. They're also made from minerals, but are used for all your non-military applications. Pops will constantly use consumer goods like food, but it's also used by most planetary buildings to produce even more advanced resources. But wait, you might ask, aren't these districts buildings? Well, yes, but actually no. The buildings section is where you can build unique, one-of-a-kind buildings that help specialize a planet or produce advanced resources like research points and Unity, which we'll both talk about a little later in the video, so keep watching if you want to learn about what to do with them. At the bottom of the planet screen, there'll be a few other tabs. The population tab will give you a breakdown of exactly what species live on your planet and which jobs are being worked. It's definitely more advanced, so don't worry about it in your first few games, but it's there if you want to poke around. The armies tab we'll talk about later, and the holding tab is where other empires can build special buildings on your planet, but that's all DLC, so just ignore that for now too. The last planetary thing we need to quickly talk about is colonization. Eventually, your science ship will find other habitable planets and nearby systems that your species can live on. So click them, click the colonize button, and wait for your new home to be established. It'll cost some initial upkeep as the planet is first being founded, but once it's up and running, it'll function just like all your other planets. More planets equals more pops, so get out there and start making space babies. Sooner or later, it's not just going to be asteroids and colonies that your science ships are finding, but other life forms that threaten the galaxy and your way of life. This brings us to the last X. Exterminate! Sometimes when exploring a system, you will find small fleets of creatures or pirates that won't let your science ship come in and do science. How dare they? Grab your little military fleet, make sure your number is bigger than their number, and bonk them until they're dead. If your number is too small, go to your shipyard, build more ships until your number is big. Big numbers, big bonk. Build ships, merge fleet, make more ships, make big fleet, nothing will stand in your way. 2 of the side tabs are important for military. The fleet designer lets you easily create fleets to your exact specification, and the ship designer lets you, oh god, there are so many options here. If it's your first few games, just let the computer auto-design ships. You'll get to a point where you want to explore this more, and you'll know when that happens. But for now, just look at military like this. Big number greater than little number equals win. But what else can help you win? Technology! Your empire will generate tech points each month based on research stations and planetary labs, and then you'll assign a scientist to research 3 separate tech trees: physics, society, and engineering. Physics is focused around engine upgrades, shields and lasers, and computery science stuff. Society is all about genetic modifications, terraforming, civil bureaucracy, and secret psionic underground societies. Engineering is the most military focused, with all the big ship types, missiles and armor, robots, and the late game megastructures. Higher level tech improves literally every aspect of the game, so don't neglect your tech. If a technocratic empire can survive the early game without being majorly threatened, they'll likely snowball into a very powerful empire in the mid to late game. They're basically space wizards. Alongside of generating tech, your planets will also produce Unity. This advanced resource is used for helping define the current focus of your empire and helps tell the story of how they journey through the space phase of their civilization. Unity has 2 main uses at the start. It can be used to hire additional leaders like scientists, allowing you to field more science vessels, or or it can be used to enact edicts within your empire, which are buffs that let you min-max parts of your economy. Edicts are very powerful tools, and you're able to enact up to your edict cap at no cost to your monthly unity, so don't hesitate to use these. Once you've stockpiled enough unity, you'll unlock your first tradition. These are like mini tech trees that help buff up an aspect of your empire. If you're colonizing a lot of planets, then expansion might be a good choice. If you want to make friends with your neighbors, then diplomacy is a natural fit. Complete an entire tradition and you'll unlock an ascension perk, a super powerful buff that defines your strengths as an empire. You'll only be able to unlock 7 tradition trees and 8 ascension perks across the entire game, so make sure you weigh your options a little. For first picks, discovery and expansion are both good choices, and I typically recommend everyone takes supremacy as their third tree if you intend on doing any fighting. But before we talk about blowing up the galaxy, let's first talk about diplomacy. When you make contact with another alien life form, you'll get a special event to start studying them. Assign one of your envoys to the task, and eventually you can talk face to face, or face to butt, or face to whatever this thing is. Talking to other empires will let you form friends or rivals, sign non-aggression pacts, open up your borders to allow for migration, and all kinds of other trades. Remember that influence resource that we used to build starbases? Well, it's also used to maintain treaties with other species, or even used to spy on them as well. Eventually, once enough species meet each other, they'll bind together and form a galactic community, where the strengths of the empires can be weighted to vote for wide, sweeping galactic buffs and debuffs for everyone involved. If you want to unite the galaxy together to face greater threats, peacefully doing so through the galactic community is a great way to do it. But there are other ways to bring the galaxy together, whether they like it or not. Yes, sirree, I'm talking about good old-fashioned American politics. That sweet titanium treaty, that atomic agreement, that nuclear no sirree, yes sirree, I'm talking about blowing up the sun. Regardless of what adorable peace-loving creature you decide to play as, the AI will always have someone in the galaxy that wants to eat, maim, or enslave your entire species. So how do you deal with it? Well, in most cases, remember, big numbers, big bonk. I would argue that wars are fought on 3 stages in Stellaris. First is through controlling choke points into your space via upgraded starbases. A well-upgraded starbase with lots of defensive platforms will typically be too strong for an equal empire's fleet to fight. So if you don't want to fight, you can always just build a wall. If you do want to fight, then stage 2 is fleet combat. Try to keep your fleets as large as possible and make sure they're upgraded with the latest tech you have available. One lost battle does not lose a war. And if you can chip away at an enemy fleet while your stronger economy reinforces your numbers, it's possible to turn the tide in just a war of attrition. The third stage is planetary combat. Remember that army tab when you select the planet? You can also create assault armies here and then send them into space to land on enemy planets and fight their garrisons. There are all sorts of different armies and stats, but except in very unique cases, the bigger number here just flat out wins. So if you're preparing for war, remember, bring an army that can take the planets while your fleets take the starports. Once you start winning wars, flying through tech, and developing all your planets, you'll be well on your way to victory. And I'm totally 100% certain that there's definitely not a bunch of horrific monsters in the galaxy that will come out of nowhere and absolutely just destroy your entire empire once you think you finally got a hold of how to play the game. Just remember that motto. Losing is fun. If you like Stellaris and want to learn how to play other great strategy games, then you'll probably like my beginner's guide to Total War Warhammer that you can click on right here. Big thank you to all my subscribers over on twitch.tv/AgentNumberOne for helping me make this video and keeping me company during all those cold and lonely cryo sleep cycles as we jump from sector to sector.